So in today's input for identifying functions, we actually have quite a bit of the language of the discipline words, which is also our gate icon of the month. And the language of the discipline is going to give us words that we need to know along with its definition. Okay, so our first word is relation. Relation. Write it down with me. Relation is a set of ordered pairs. So it might look like this, which is a set. We have those little squiggly lines. And I'm just using variables right now instead of numbers. So a relation is a set of ordered pairs. Can everyone repeat that after me? A relation is a set of ordered pairs.
A relation is a set of ordered pairs.
Very good. Next word is domain. The domain is the set of first coordinates. The set of first coordinates. That really means it's all the x's. It's all the x's. So your set might look like this, has the little set squiggle. It might be all the x's that you find in that equation or in that function. Everyone say the domain is x.
The domain is x.
The domain is x.
The domain is x.
Good. So by process of elimination, let me think. I wonder what the range is. The range is
Why?
the set of second coordinates. Exactly. It's the y. Write it down, please. Everything. So again, it'll look like a little set, and it'll be all the y's that you find in the function. So the relation is the set together, x and y. The domain is the x's. The range is the y's. We have two more words. Function. Because you're going to have to determine whether it is a function or not. Your answer would be yes, function, or no, not a function. So a function is a relation that assigns to each value in the domain exactly one value in the range. So for every x, there is a y. This means that the y's can repeat, but the x's cannot. So if you want to put a little star, put the y's can repeat. Which means I can have a set of numbers that has maybe -3, 2, and -1, 2. That the y's, that 2, can repeat, but the x's cannot. Pencil up when you're ready for me to give you the next word. And our next word, I'll move that up a little bit. Last one is the vertical line test. Vertical line test. This means if any vertical line passes through more than one point, on the graph, then the relation is not a function. Make sure everyone's writing everything down. For example, if I had a graph that looked like this, okay, and if I drew a line, okay, so say I drew a line here. If my line can go through 2 points, right, this would be a point right here, and this would be a point right here. If my line goes through 2 points, it's not a function. So this one would be not a function. But if, for example, I had a graph that looked like this, remember it's a vertical line test. So if I draw a vertical line, look, it only goes through 1 point of connection. That means, yes, it's a function. That's the difference. So you use the vertical line test, just draw a straight line down. If your line goes through more than 1 point, it's not a function. If your line just goes through 1 point, which is 1 point of intersection, then it's a function. Pencil up when you've drawn those so you know what they look like. All right, you ready to model what it looks like? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, we're good. 1 second, okay. Here are the modeling directions. Example 1. The directions are to find the domain, which is X or Y? X, good. And range, which is Y. And then the question is each relation a function? Okay. Find the domain and range. Is each relation a function? Make sure you write the directions. So this is what they're going to give you. Everyone please draw it with me. So we're going to make this the letter A. It's our first example. I want you to put X on one side, draw a line, and Y on the other side. And in the X column, I want you to write -2, 3, 5, and -4. In the Y column, please write 3, -1, 0, and 3. Now the question asks us to find the domain and the range, okay? So I know my domain are my X's, and my range are my Y's. Okay, so I'm going to write my domains first, so go ahead and write the word domain. Just like that. And we're going to put our set little bubble in there. That was really bad. Okay? And let's look at our domain. So let's look at our X's. I have, now it must be in order. So I have -4, -2, 3, and 5. They must be in number order from least to greatest. Write that down. Now they ask me to write the range, so I'm going to write the range down. From least to greatest, I have -1. I have 0. And I have 3. 3 is written down twice. I don't need to write it down twice. 3 is one of my sets. 3 is here and here, but I only have to write it one time. Now, is this a function? Which means, can the y's repeat? Yes. Can the x's repeat? No. So it doesn't look like I have any repeat x's. I have a repeat of y. That's okay. So I know that, yes, this is a function. And this whole thing is my answer. I wrote the domain, I wrote the range, and I said, yes, it is a function. Make sure you have that in your notes. Okay, let's try the letter B. One more like this. So, same directions. They give you an X, and they give you a Y. I have in my X's -3, 6, 3, and -8. And in my Y's I have -5, 7, 4, and -2. Sorry, and this is a -3. There's 2 -3s in the X. Same directions, write my domain, which is my X's. So, domain, which is all of the X's. Okay, I have -8, -3, I don't need to write it twice, and 6. Then I need to write my ranges, which are my Y's. Write the word range. I have, in order, -5, -2 from least to greatest, 4, and 7. Now here's where you gotta pay attention. Remember, the X's cannot repeat. Do we see a repeat in the X? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So if there's a repeat in the X, it is not a function. Because if you were to graph it and the X repeated, it would go through 2 points. The Y's, not necessarily. So this whole thing is your answer. The domain, the range, and it is not a function. Put your pencil in there when you're ready. Good job, good job, good job. Okay, let's try example 2. These directions are the same. It says to find the domain and range. Is the relation a function? Everyone should be writing down the directions. Thank you, Samantha, and Daniel, and Justin, for having your pencil in the air, and Dane. Okay, this time they're going to write it a little bit differently. So this is letter A. They're going to give it to us in a relation. So 11, comma, -2, 12, comma, -1, 13, comma, -2, and 20, comma, 7. Please write that down. So that's how they gave it to us. They gave us 1, 2, 3, 4 coordinates. in a set, which is called a relation. So this just means we have one more step. This means that we need to draw our x and y first. Okay? So this extra step means that we're going to draw our x and our y. And I'm going to write my x's down. So I have 11, 12, 13, and 20. And then in my y's, I have -2, -1, -2, and 7. I need to write -2 twice. So I have -2, -1, and 7. Leaving? All right. So, write the domain and the range. We can do that. That's easy. Domain. I look at my x's. I have 11, 12, 13, and 20. Let me write near agenda Megan. And then I need to write my range. I'm going to look at my y's. -2, -1, and 7. Now I know, because I looked back at my notes, that the y's can repeat. So that's not a problem. So then I think to myself, is this a function or not? Yes, my y's can repeat, but my x's can't. So then I'm good. It is a function. And that's your whole answer again. Okay, let's try letter B. So this is going to be the same thing. They're going to give you a set. 3, -2, 8, and 1, 9, 2, 3, 3, there's a lot, and -4, 0. Please write down that. Go ahead, guys, and try and draw your x and your y for me. Put them in the right spot. Go ahead and do that. The website. Okay, so on your x and y, I would have in my order -4, 3, 8, and 9. So again, I found them here. -4, 3, 8, and 9. There's another 3 there, but I don't need to write it twice, right? So then I go to my y. I should have -2, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And -2, 1, 0, 2, and 3. So then I write my domain, which are my x's. So I have -4, 3, 8, and 9. So again, I'm just copying it from the column. Looking at my range, I have -2, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now I think to myself, every number doesn't match up because I have a repeat in my x's. Can my x's repeat? No. So it is not a function. It is not a function. Let's open you at that. The last two parts of this have to deal with using the vertical line test to see if you have a function or not. So this is where you're going to try to make your notes a little precise if you're not using graph paper, but I suggest you use graph paper for this next part. Okay? All right. So example 3. This is where we use our vertical line test. So the directions are very simple. They just ask you, is the relation a function? It's very simple. Let's see it. So our first graph letter A, is going to look like so. Please draw the graph. Make it as precise as possible. My line is actually going to go through the origin. When you have drawn that, please put your pencil underneath. Now you're simply just going to use the vertical line test, and that's literally drawing a line. So I'm going to take my pencil or pen, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to draw a line here to check on that side, and I'm going to draw a line here to check that side. When I drew my lines, it only met at one point, right here and right here. It touched the line once. So, yes, my answer is that it's a function. That's all you have to do. Test it by drawing a vertical line. Doesn't matter where you draw the vertical line, as long as it goes through the point once. Let's try graph letter B. You might get a graph that looks like this. Whoa. A little squiggly line. Try to make it as precise as possible. Now again, all I have to do is draw one line. So I can pick anywhere. I'm going to pick here. That only touches a point right here. If it only goes through one point on the graph, then it's a function. So my answer is yes, function. It's very, very easy. Make sure you have both of those. Pencil here when you do. Thank you, Daniel and Macy. I appreciate it. That way I know I can move on. Thank you, Brandon and Jane and Shreya. Okay, let's try this graph. So my graph's a circle. Now I'm going to do my vertical line test. I'm going to go right about here. Right. I look at it, it touches the line here, and it touches the line here. If it goes through 2 points, is it a function? No. So I'm going to write not a function, and that's my answer. It's very simple. Okay. What about last one for this type of example? Here's my graph. And here's my line. It's already a vertical line. That's a little confusing, but no, it's not. If I were to draw a line, is it going to touch through more than 1 point? Yeah, it's touching all the points all the way through the line. So is it a function? No. A vertical line is not a function. A horizontal line would be, but not a vertical line. Because that includes all the points in that line. When you do your homework, you're going to have to use the vertical line test for some of them. Okay? All right, last type of examples. 4 more. Okay? So here's example 4. These directions are slightly different. It says to find the domain and range. And then it asks you, is the relation a function? I say, Ms. Grant, those directions sound different. Yes. But the types of problems they give you are going to have to do with graphing. So letter A, graph, is going to look like this. It doesn't have to be very big. I'm going to have a point on this line. And I'm going to have a point right here. And that's where my line is going to go through. So I have a point at the 0, -1 mark. And I have a point also pull up. Okay? So first of all, vertical line test. I go to this point and this point. It only passes through it once. So I know it's a function. Whenever you have a straight line, here's how you say your domain and range. My domain, it's a straight linear line, is going to be all real numbers. All real numbers. And my range is all real numbers. And we vertical line tested them. It only goes through 1 point. So yes, my answer is a function. So those 3 things are what my answer is made up of. All real numbers because it's a linear line. Okay. Change it?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Letter B. Almost there. Looks like this. Now they're going to tell me that x is greater than or equal to -1 and x is less than or equal to 4. So I can put those on my graph. So I'm going to x is greater than or equal to -1. So I'm going to put right there on the x line. Remember the x-axis is the horizontal line. And this is the y-axis. Want to label those to remember. And x is less than or equal to 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. They also tell me that y is less than or equal to 1 and that y is greater than or equal to negative 1. So now I'm going to go to my y-axis, my vertical. Less than or equal to 1, that's right here. And negative 1, that's right here. And then they tell me that's my shape. Now, we can already tell it's not a function, right? Because it's going through 2 points. But how am I going to write my domain and my range? My domain is going to be a solution set, if you will, which means I'm going to put my set there. I'm going to put x in 2 colons. And I'm going to write my solution set. X is, so negative 1 is less than or equal to x, and less than or equal to 4. So it's like how we wrote our equations in our last test. And my range, which includes y, is going to be written like an and problem, like our last math test. Negative 1 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 1. And you guys already told me, passed through 2 points, so it's not a function. So those ones are a little bit harder. Okay? And then letter C. Letter C gives me a set and they want me to graph it. So I'm going to get 0, 2, 1, negative 1, negative 1, 4, 0, negative 3, and one more they give me, 2, 1. So the first thing they want us to do is graph it. So let's draw a graph. So let's graph the first one, 0, 2. So on the x-axis, I go 0. On the y, I go up 2. So I'm going to check that one off. Then I have 1, negative 1, which means on the x-axis, I go over 1. On the y, I go down 1. That's negative 1. So then I put it there. Graph that point. Then I have on the x-axis negative 1, so I go left 1. Positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cross that out. Then I have 0, negative 3. I move 0. I go down 3. And then I have 2, 1. Positive 2 to the right 2. Positive 1 on the y, up 1. Now the domain, which means let's list all of the x's. Okay? So let's list the domain. Let's look at what we have here. Okay? Look at all the first numbers in each set. I have 0, I have negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So So 0, 1, -1, 0, and 2. 0 is there twice. I don't need to write it twice. Then I need to write the range, which is all of my y's. -3, -1, 1, 2, and 4. So again, I looked at all of my y's. So the second number in the set. Then the last question it asked me is it a function or not? Are there 2 points that go through the same area?
Yes.
Do you guys see that right here? So is it a function?
No.
No, not a function. Does that make sense? So I get my x's and my y's from the coordinates they gave me. Once I graph it, I can figure out if there are 2 that go through the same vertical area, which means if my x's repeat, it's not going to be a function. One more, last one. Letter D, you can do it. They give me a function at 0, 2. They give me at -1, 1, and +1, 1. And they also give them to me down there. And they said, look, this is your line. Now if I vertical line test, does it look like anything's going to go through the same point? No, it's a function. Very good. So I need to write the domain. Domain is the x's. Domain. So if I look on this x-axis, it's going to be all real numbers. If I look at my range, which means my y's, they're kind of all over the place. But my range is that y is less than or equal to 2. Because it's exactly where it hits. And we discover that, yes, it is a function. Thanks, Alex.